A powerful man caught between life and death, a girl invisible to the world, and an encounter that would change them both forever. When he was found tied to a tree, knowing nothing but his own name, he never imagined his salvation would come from the dirty hands of a street kid. And that fate held a secret that would bind their lives in an unimaginable way. Subscribe to the channel for heartwarming stories every day. The millionaire observed the city through the glass window that covered an entire wall of his penthouse. Office. 50 stories below, people the size of ants scurried about, completely oblivious to his existence, exactly how he preferred it. He swirled the bourbon in his crystal glass, savoring the soft clink of the ice against the glass. The bitter taste of the drink matched perfectly the emptiness he felt, even surrounded by so much luxury. He owned a real estate empire valued in billions, possessed mansions on 3 continents, private jets, and cars that most people would only see in magazines. "Sir, the documents for signature," announced the secretary, placing an Italian leather folder on the marble desk. He didn't. "Look up, and the board awaits your decision on the community that will be displaced for the new development," she continued in her impeccably professional voice. "Tell them we'll proceed with the eviction as planned," he replied, signing the documents. "Without reading them. We're not in the charity business." The secretary nodded and left silently. He returned to contemplate the city that, for the most part, belonged to him. His eyes lingered momentarily on the photograph on the desk, him younger, smiling next to 3 children. One of them, the youngest, had the same smile as him. It was the only physical similarity they shared, a detail that always enchanted him. His cell phone vibrated, a message from his partner. "We need to talk about the discrepancies. Tomorrow at the usual spot." His face hardened. Discrepancies. A soft word to describe what really went on behind the scenes of his company. Miles away, in a forgotten area of the city, the girl curled up inside a cardboard box as a light rain began to fall. Her small, dirty fingers held tightly to a hardened piece of bread, the only food she had managed to find that day. Tangled hair fell over her thin face, hiding large, observant eyes that seemed to absorb everything around her. She was practically invisible to the people who rushed by, protecting themselves from the rain with umbrellas and stylish coats. No one looked down into the shadows between the buildings where creatures like her survived on the scraps of the city. "Hey, get out of there! That's my spot!" shouted an older boy, kicking the box where she sheltered. Without a word, the girl grabbed her only possession, a rusty can where she kept a pocket knife and some treasures found in the trash, and ran away, melting into the shadows of the twilight. As she fled, she passed by an electronics store. In the window, several televisions displayed the same image, the millionaire's face, smiling confidently, while a caption announced the expansion of his empire with a new and luxurious development. The girl couldn't read, but she recognized that face. It was the same one that was in the newspaper clipping that the kind woman had shown her months before. "He's my father," she had said with a sad smile. "A very important man. The same woman who, days later, had appeared dead in an alley after a night of heavy rain. The police took the body, but no one looked for a street girl who might have witnessed something. The rain thickened, washing the streets of the city. On one side, the millionaire in his tower of glass and steel, isolated from the world by his wealth and power. On the other, the girl of the shadows, invisible and silent, carrying a secret that not even she fully understood. That night, neither of them could imagine how their lives would become indelibly intertwined, or how a simple encounter would forever change their destiny. The millionaire woke up with a bitter taste in his mouth and a throbbing pain in his head. He tried to move, but his arms wouldn't respond. He opened his eyes slowly, and reality hit him like a punch. He was tied to a tree, somewhere that definitely wasn't his penthouse apartment. His Italian suit, which cost more than many earn in a month, was torn and dirty. Dried blood stained the sleeve. Fragments of memory began to emerge slowly. The meeting with his partner, the heated argument, the threat to expose the scheme. I can't do this," his partner had said, with a dangerous glint in his eye. "There are too many people involved, too powerful." He had replied that he didn't care, that he was tired of living with it on his conscience. After that, darkness. Now, here he was, the powerful real estate mogul, trapped like an animal in what seemed to be an abandoned dirt road. The relentless sun beat down on his skin, unaccustomed to the outdoors. There were no signs of civilization within sight. "Help! Somebody help me!" he shouted, his hoarse voice echoing in the emptiness. Only silence responded. Hours passed. The thirst became unbearable. His head throbbed increasingly harder. When the sun began to dip in the horizon, the millionaire had lost track of time, and his consciousness wavered dangerously. It was then that he heard it, a slight rustling among the dry leaves, almost imperceptible footsteps. "Is anyone there?" he asked, his voice no more than a rough whisper. Silence. Then suddenly she appeared. A small figure emerged from among the trees, watching him with cautious curiosity. A girl, no more than 6 years old, barefoot, with dirty clothes and a face that seemed not to have known the luxury of a bath for weeks. "If you keep breathing like that, you'll die before sunset," she said with a clear voice that contrasted with her fragile appearance. The millionaire blinked several times, unsure if it was a hallucination caused by dehydration. "Please," he whispered, "I need help." The girl studied him for a long moment, her head slightly tilted, as if assessing his worth. Then, without saying anything, she disappeared among the trees again. "No! Wait!" he shouted, desperate, struggling against the ropes that held him. But she was already gone, like a ghost. The millionaire let his head fall, surrendering to despair. His empire, his money, his power, all useless at that moment. He would die there, alone, betrayed, forgotten. Minutes that felt like hours. Passed until a familiar sound awakened him. The girl had returned, holding in her small hands a half-crushed plastic bottle with water. Without a word, she approached and carefully brought the bottle to the man's chapped lips. He drank eagerly, feeling life return to his body with each gulp. "Thank you," he murmured when he finally managed to speak. The girl just nodded, watching him with those eyes too old for her childish face. "How did you get here?" he asked. "I'm always everywhere," she replied simply. "People don't see me, so I can go wherever I want." There was something in that look, a wisdom born of pain that intrigued and disturbed him at the same time. "What's your name?" asked the millionaire. The girl didn't answer. Instead, she took out a small pocket knife, as worn as she was, from a rusty can she carried. "I'll cut the ropes," she announced, approaching him. The millionaire felt a mixture of hope and apprehension. He was about to put his life in the hands of a street kid, but what choice did he have? The girl worked in silence, cutting the bonds with surprising precision. When she reached the last rope, however, she paused. She looked directly into the man's eyes with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. "You're the father of the woman who died trying to help me," she said almost in a whisper. "She gave me bread and a blanket, and then she disappeared." The world seemed to freeze around the millionaire, his youngest daughter, the mysterious accident, the unanswered questions. And now, in the middle of nowhere, a child emerged from the shadows, bringing the key to a mystery he didn't even know existed. The girl's words echoed like a funeral bell in the millionaire's ears. A confusion of emotions, shock, disbelief, anger, crossed his usually impassive face. "You don't know what you're talking about," he replied, his voice trembling slightly. "My daughter died in an accident." The girl continued to stare at him, unperturbed, as if she could see through his defenses. "She showed me a picture of you," insisted the child. "Said you were very important, but that you never had time for her." The millionaire felt like he'd been punched in the stomach. It sounded exactly like something his daughter would say, but it couldn't be true. He couldn't accept that this ragged child knew his daughter, or that her death wasn't a simple accident as everyone claimed. "Finish cutting the ropes," he ordered, recovering the authoritative tone he used in business meetings. The girl hesitated for a moment, but obeyed, finally freeing him. The millionaire tried to get up, but his legs buckled after so many hours immobilized. He fell to his knees on the dirt, a humiliation he never would have imagined experiencing. "You need to eat something and rest," observed the girl with a strange maturity. "There's an abandoned farm about 2 miles from here." She held out a tiny, dirty hand, offering help. The millionaire looked at those fragile fingers, hesitated, and finally accepted the support, allowing a street kid to guide him along the dusty road. The sun was setting on the horizon, painting the sky red and gold. The silence between them was heavy, laden with unasked questions. "How did you know I was there?" finally asked the millionaire as they walked slowly. "I didn't," she replied. "I'm always hiding. The world is safer in the shadows." "And why did you help me?" The girl stopped, looking at him with an expression that mixed curiosity and something akin to pity. "Because you were crying like she did." Again, the mention of his daughter made the millionaire's heart clench. He didn't want to believe that there was a connection, that his daughter could have died for something other than an unfortunate accident, that his own partner, his friend of decades, could be involved. "You're confused," he said, more to himself than to the girl. "You probably saw pictures of me in newspapers or magazines. You make up stories because you're alone." The girl didn't answer. She kept walking, her bare feet stepping firmly on the uneven ground, as if she knew every stone on the path. At nightfall, they arrived at the abandoned farm, a decaying structure that in better times might have been a pleasant place. Now it was just another symbol of abandonment, like so many that the millionaire saw daily from his office window without ever really seeing. The girl led him to a barn, where there was a clean space with fresh hay. Clearly, she had used that place as a refuge before. "Rest," she said, handing him a piece of hard bread that she took from her pocket. "Tomorrow we'll look for help." The millionaire accepted the food, feeling strangely humiliated to receive charity from a street kid. His pride, his entire identity, was wounded. He, who commanded empires and influenced markets, now depended on the kindness of a girl who had absolutely nothing. "Why do you live like this?" he asked as he chewed the hard bread. "Don't you have family? No one to take care of you?" The girl sat at a safe distance, hugging her knees to her chest. "Some people don't have family," she replied simply, "and some families don't want their people." The comment struck the millionaire more deeply than he expected. He thought of his own fragmented family, the children he barely knew, absorbed as he was in building his empire. He thought especially of his youngest daughter, always trying to get his attention, always being put off until after another important meeting, another unmissable deal. "What was she like?" he asked, almost without realizing it. "The woman you said helped you." The girl watched him for a long moment before answering. "Kind," she said finally. "She smiled even when she was sad, and she promised me that one day I wouldn't need to hide anymore." The millionaire felt something break inside him. It was exactly like his daughter, always worried about others, always trying to fix the world, always believing that it could be better than it was. "You're lying," he said, but his voice no longer had conviction. The girl shrugged and stood up. "Tomorrow, when it gets light, I'll take you to the main road," she said, heading for the barn door. "From there, you choose your path." And before he could say anything else, she disappeared into the darkness, leaving him alone with his tormented thoughts and the growing suspicion that everything he believed might be a carefully constructed lie. The millionaire awoke to the singing of birds and rays of sunlight filtered through the cracks in the barn. For a moment, he was disoriented until the memory of the previous day's events returned with full force. The betrayal, the hours tied to the tree, and the girl, that strange child who claimed to know his deceased daughter. He sat up in the hay, feeling every muscle in his body protest. He ran a hand over his face, feeling the stubble and the cuts that were beginning to heal. He had never been so far from the comfort and power that defined his existence. "You're awake." The girl's voice startled him. She was sitting near the door, watching him with those eyes that seemed to absorb everything. In her small hands, she held something that the millionaire couldn't immediately identify. "I found fresh water," she said, pointing to a filled plastic bottle. "And this was in your pocket." She held out a silver keychain with a small picture inside. The millionaire took it, his hands trembling slightly. It was a gift that his daughter had given him years before, with a picture of her as a child. He always carried it with him, although he rarely looked at it. "She had the same picture," commented the girl, with a simplicity that made it impossible to doubt her words. The millionaire stared at the picture for a long moment. His daughter, at 10 years old, smiling with 2 front teeth missing, eyes shining with joy. A simpler time, before money and power became his obsession, before meetings and deals replaced birthdays and graduations. "Why was she helping you?" he asked finally, his voice softer than he intended. The girl took out the rusty can she always carried and retrieved a folded piece of paper, handing it to the millionaire. "She said she was doing the work you should be doing." With hesitant fingers, the millionaire unfolded the paper. It was a crumpled and faded photograph showing his daughter next to several children in front of an abandoned building. On the back, a message written in her characteristic handwriting: "New Roots Project to give a future to those the world has forgotten." He felt a lump in his throat. His daughter had tried to tell him about this project countless times, but he was always too busy to listen, always postponing the conversation to a better occasion. "She came every week," continued the girl. "Brought food, blankets, sometimes books. Said she wanted to build a safe place for kids like me." "And what happened to her?" asked the millionaire, though he feared the answer. The girl lowered her gaze, stirring the dirt with a twig. "Bad men came one night, said the building was going to be demolished to build something important. She argued with them, said she was going to talk to the owner, that he wouldn't allow it." A chilling sensation ran down the millionaire's spine. The downtown revitalization project, the eviction of squatters. His own company was behind it, although he rarely got involved in the operational details. "What men were these?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. "One of them was angry, had a red face and shouted a lot. The other was calm, but he was scarier, spoke softly and smiled in a weird way." The millionaire felt the blood run cold in his veins. The description fit perfectly with his partner and the company's head of security. "She said she was going to tell you everything, that you were going to stop it. Then they laughed and said that you already knew everything." The revelation was like a dagger in his chest. Of course he didn't know, not the details, not the real consequences of his orders, signed absent-mindedly on papers he barely read. But did that make him any less guilty? That night, she found the building surrounded. She went in to get the children who were sleeping inside. "I was with her. There was a fight. She pushed me out of a window and told me to run." The girl paused, her eyes distant. "After that, we heard screams and the sound of things breaking. The next day, they said it was an accident. The millionaire's world completely crumbled at that moment. His daughter hadn't died in a car accident as he had been told. She had been silenced, possibly by his own partner, for the crime of trying to protect homeless children from being evicted to make way for yet another luxury development. "Why didn't you tell anyone?" he asked. His voice choked. "I did," replied the girl, "but nobody listens to street kids." The silence that followed was heavy, laden with revelations and remorse. The millionaire looked at the child in front of him, small, dirty, abandoned, and saw not only the last person who was with his daughter, but also the living evidence of his own negligence. Every child on the streets, every family evicted to make way for his luxurious developments, every life destroyed in the name of progress and profit. "Let's go," he said finally, getting up with difficulty. "We have to get out of here." The girl stared at him distrustful. "Where to?" "First, to the city. I need to get my life back, my power, and then..." "And then what?" she asked with a wisdom that didn't match her age. "And then I'm going to fulfill the promise your mother made to you. I'm going to give you a place where you don't need to and hide anymore." The girl didn't smile, didn't show any emotion. She just nodded slightly, as if she had heard too many promises to believe easily. Together they left the barn into the clarity of the morning. The millionaire, accustomed to commanding the world from inside luxurious offices, now walked alongside a street kid, following her steps in a territory he had never set foot in. And for the first time in years, he saw the world as it really was, not through the distorted lens of power and wealth. The sun was already high when the millionaire and the girl reached the main road. The hot asphalt was a relief after miles of dirt road, but the child's bare feet still had better endurance than the man's Italian shoes, now ruined by dust and mud. They walked in silence for almost an hour until a truck stopped at their signal. The driver, a middle-aged man with a sunburnt face, looked suspiciously at the unusual duo, a man in a torn suit with a wounded face, accompanied by a child who looked like she had been raised by wolves. "We need a ride to the city," said the millionaire, his voice naturally assuming the commanding tone he used in board meetings. "Something happened to you folks?" asked the driver, looking especially at the girl. "We were robbed," lied the millionaire. My daughter and I." The word daughter came out strangely from his lips, and he felt the girl stiffen beside him. But the driver seemed to accept the explanation and gestured to the truck cab. "I can drop you off at the gas station at the edge of town. From there you can call for help." During the ride, the driver tried to make small talk, but the millionaire responded with monosyllables, his mind seething with thoughts of revenge and justice. The girl remained silent, watching the landscape through the window with attentive eyes, as if memorizing every detail of the route. At the gas station, the millionaire thanked the driver and, after a moment's hesitation, led the girl to the restroom. "Wash your face and hands," he instructed, grabbing liquid soap from the dispenser. "We're going to need help, and people tend to ignore those who look like they need help." The bitter irony of his words wasn't lost on him. How many times had he himself turned away from beggars and homeless people, treating them as invisible? How many families had been evicted in the name of his real estate projects, without him ever wondering where they would go? The girl obeyed silently, scrubbing her small hands and thin face until the layer of dirt lessened. Then she stared at her reflection in the mirror with a curious expression, as if she rarely had the opportunity to see herself like that. "Do you have a name?" asked the millionaire, as he tried to improve his own appearance in the mirror next to her. "I have several," she replied, drying her face with a paper towel. "Depends on who's asking." "And what did my daughter call you?" A brief silence then. "She called me Little Light. Said I had light in my eyes, even living in the darkness." The Millionaire felt a pang in his chest. It was exactly the kind of thing his daughter would say, always seeing beauty where no one else did. "I'll call you that then, if you don't mind." The girl shrugged, as if names were irrelevant to her existence. Maybe they were. At the gas station's payphone, the millionaire took a deep breath before dialing his personal assistant's number. He needed to choose carefully who he would trust. His partner, possibly involved in his daughter's death, had certainly already told his own version of events. "Mister, it's me," interrupted the millionaire. "Don't say my name, just listen. I need you to bring me money, clean clothes, and a car. I'm at the gas station on the south edge of town. Come alone and don't tell anyone, not even my family." There was a moment of shock on the other end of the line, followed by a series of questions. "Just do what I asked," cut off the millionaire. "I'll explain everything when you get here." "No?" While they waited, the millionaire bought sandwiches and sodas for both of them, noticing how the girl devoured the food as if it were her last meal. When she finished, she looked at him with an almost distrustful expression. "Why are you helping?" "Me now?" she asked. The millionaire considered the question for a long moment. "I think you're the one helping me," he replied finally. "You saved me on that road, and maybe you're saving me from myself now." "She said you were a good person inside," commented the girl, stirring her soda with the straw. "That you just forgot what it was like because money makes people forget." The millionaire felt exposed, as if this child could see through all the layers of arrogance and indifference he had built over the years. "And what else did she say about me? That one day you'd remember, that one day you'd look down and see the real people." The brutal simplicity of those words hit the millionaire with the force of a physical blow. His daughter had always tried to make him see the real world beyond the spreadsheets and contracts, and he had always postponed it, always prioritized other things. Now she was dead, and he found himself sitting in a dirty gas station next to a street girl who probably knew more about his own daughter than he ever had. The assistant arrived shortly after, clearly shocked by the state of his boss, but too professional to make comments. He just handed over a bag with clean clothes, cash, and the keys to a nondescript car. "No one knows I'm here," he assured him. "As you ordered." The millionaire nodded, satisfied with the loyalty. Then, looking at the girl who kept a cautious distance, he introduced, "This is a friend. She's under my protection now." The assistant's eyes widened for a moment, but he quickly regained his composure. "I understand, sir. The car is full of gas and the prepaid cell phone is in the glove compartment as requested. Where should I say you went if they ask?" "Say I'm indisposed, that I needed to be away for personal matters." The millionaire paused. "And find out everything you can about the circumstances of my daughter's death. Everything." Already in the car, as he drove back to the city, the millionaire watched the girl out of the corner of his eye. She seemed as out of place on the leather seat as he himself would feel, sleeping in a cardboard box. Two worlds colliding, each equally foreign to the other. "Is there anything I should know before we get to the city?" he asked. "The man who ordered you killed is probably looking for me too," replied the girl, looking out the window with apparent indifference. "He thinks I know too much." The millionaire gripped the steering wheel tightly. His partner, his friend of decades, the man who frequented his house, who had seen his children grow up. How can I prove what he did to my daughter? The girl reached into the rusty can she carried with her. "She gave me something to keep safe. Said it was important, that it could save many lives." Her small fingers pulled out a flash drive hidden among her treasures. "Said I should only give it to you if something happened to her." The flash drive felt like it was burning in the millionaire's hand, an object so small and yet potentially containing the key to revealing the truth about his daughter's death, and perhaps much more. Throughout the drive to the discreet hotel on the outskirts of the city, his mind swirled with possibilities and fears. How did she know she would be in danger? He asked the girl, who watched the urban landscape with attentive eyes, as if studying a foreign territory. She found papers and overheard conversations, replied the little one, without taking her eyes off the window. Said important people were doing bad things, that your name was on the papers, but that you didn't know everything. The guilt hit the millionaire like a physical blow. He signed documents daily, dozens of them, trusting blindly in his partner to take care of the operational details, while he took care of the strategic vision and public relations of the company. How many lives had he affected without even realizing it? At the hotel, chosen for its discretion and cash-only policy, the millionaire settled the girl into a room connected to his. He watched as she examined the space cautiously, touching the soft bed and pillows as if they were alien objects. "You can take a hot shower," he suggested, pointing to the bathroom. "There are clean clothes I asked my assistant to bring." The girl nodded, but didn't move immediately. Her eyes followed the millionaire's every move, as if she still didn't fully trust his intentions. "I'm not going anywhere," he assured her, sensing her fear. "I need to see what's on this flash drive. Then we'll talk about what to do." Alone, in the adjoining room, the millionaire connected the flash drive to the laptop provided by his assistant. His hands trembled slightly as he waited for the contents to load. What he found made his blood run cold. Detailed spreadsheets of bribes to city officials, demolition contracts with antedated signatures before legal approval, falsified environmental reports, and the most disturbing, a list of obstacles removed. People who had tried to oppose the company's projects and suffered accidents were arrested on trumped-up charges or simply disappeared. His daughter's name was at the bottom of the list, with the note, "Family problem resolved. Accident confirmed by the press." The millionaire stood up abruptly, running to the bathroom where he vomited violently. When he finally regained control, he stared at his reflection in the mirror, a broken man with eyes full of horror as he realized his participation, even through negligence, in terrible crimes. Among the files he found a video. With trembling fingers, he clicked to play it. His daughter's face filled the screen. She looked tired, but determined. "Dad, if you're seeing this, it means something happened to me. Please, listen to the end." Her voice was clear, firm, so much like his own when he gave important presentations. "I discovered that our company is involved in illegal activities far beyond minor tax irregularities. We're destroying lives, Dad, displacing families without adequate compensation, ignoring safety regulations, bribing officials. And when someone tries to stop us, well, you'll see in the documents I saved." She paused, running a hand through her hair in a way so familiar that it broke the millionaire's heart. "I know you wouldn't approve of this if you knew. I tried to talk to you so many times, but you were always too busy. So I decided to investigate on my own. Your partner is behind everything, Dad. He uses your name, your signature, your reputation to do terrible things." Her expression softened. "I'm helping children who have been affected by our actions. Children who lost their homes because of our developments. There's one in particular, a girl who doesn't say your name. If anything happens to me, look for her. He knows her, he'll try to eliminate her too. I promised to protect her, to give her a home. Please, fulfill that promise for me." The video ended with his daughter looking directly at the camera, as if she could see through time and space, directly into her father's eyes. "I love you, Dad. I know you'll do the right thing when you know the truth." The millionaire remained motionless, tears streaming freely down his face. Years of absence, of missed opportunities to really know his daughter, to support her, to be the father she deserved, it all hit him at once. A slight noise made him turn around. The girl was standing in the doorway connecting the rooms. Her hair wet from the shower, wearing new clothes that, although a little too small, were infinitely better than the rags she wore before. "You watched the video," she said. It wasn't a question. The millionaire nodded, unable to speak for a moment. "She recorded one for me too," continued the girl, approaching slowly. "Showed it before that night. Said I needed to be brave and smart, that one day you'd come looking for me, or I'd find you." "How did you find me on that road?" asked the millionaire, wiping away his tears. The girl sat down next to him, looking at the now dark screen of the laptop. "I didn't find you. I was running, like I always do. But she said there are no coincidences, that some people are destined to meet." The millionaire looked at that child, so small and yet carrying such a heavy burden, witness to his daughter's death, guardian of dangerous secrets, survivor in a world that considered her invisible. "Do you know what we have to do now?" he asked, feeling a new determination growing inside him. The girl looked at him with those eyes too old for her young face. "Justice," she replied simply, and at that moment, something changed irrevocably. Between them, they were no longer just a millionaire fallen from grace and a street girl who had saved him by chance. They were united by a common purpose, by a promise to be fulfilled, by a truth that needed to come to light. The millionaire reached out, hesitant, and touched the girl's damp hair in a protective gesture. "I won't let anything happen to you," he promised. "We'll face this together." For the first time since they had met, a slight smile appeared on the child's face, shy, almost imperceptible, but definitely real. The news of the millionaire's reappearance spread quickly through the city's business circles. After 3 days of unexplained absence, he emerged like a ghost in the headlines. "Real estate tycoon found after suspected kidnapping." Speculation about what had happened proliferated, fueled by the company's official silence. His partner, sitting in the office he had temporarily taken over, watched the television coverage with an impassive expression. Only the slight tremor in his hands as he poured himself whiskey at 10 in the morning betrayed his inner turmoil. "He's alive," he murmured to the head of security, a man of few words and many scars. "And he's not talking to the press." "Maybe he's still disoriented," suggested the security chief. "The trauma. Or maybe he knows more than he should," cut off the partner. "We need to find him before he does something stupid, and find out if the girl is with him." At the hotel, the millionaire was finalizing his preparations. With the help of his personal assistant, the only one he trusted at that moment, he had made discreet contact with the district attorney known for his incorruptibility. The evidence on the flash drive was safe, copies distributed in different locations as insurance. "The DA agreed to meet us tonight," informed the assistant, hanging up the phone. "Said the case looks solid, especially with your daughter's video." The millionaire nodded, watching the girl who was drawing silently in a corner of the room. It was astonishing how quickly she adapted to each new situation, a skill developed on the streets where survival depended on flexibility and observation. "We need to talk about what happens next," he said, approaching the child. She looked up from her drawing, simple figures depicting a house with people holding hands. "When this is all over, when justice is served, you're going to need a home," continued the millionaire, feeling strangely nervous. "I'd like you to consider staying with me, legally, as my daughter." The girl stared at him with a disconcerting intensity. "Why?" A simple question that demanded an honest answer. "Because my daughter loved you. Because you're brave and smart. Because you saved my life not only on that road, but by showing me the truth about who I'd become." He paused. "And because I promised her. I promised you." The girl considered his words for a long moment, then returned to her drawing, adding more details to the house. "Let's get justice first," she said finally. "Then we'll talk about families." The silence that followed was broken by the ringing of the phone. It was the hotel front desk. "Sir, there's a man down here who insists on seeing you, says he's your partner." The millionaire felt a chill run down his spine. It was too early for this confrontation. The documents weren't officially with the DA yet. The legal protections weren't fully in place. "Tell him I'm resting and can't receive him now," he instructed. "We already have, sir, but he's quite insistent. He mentioned something about knowing your little companion." An alarm went off in the millionaire's mind. It was a veiled threat. His partner knew about the girl. "Don't let him come up," he ordered. "We'll be coming down in a few minutes." Hanging up, he turned to his assistant and the girl. "He's here. We need to leave through the back now." As they quickly gathered their essential belongings, the millionaire noticed that the girl had tucked her unfinished drawing into her pocket. A small gesture, but one that revealed so much. The newborn hope of a different future that was now at risk of being destroyed. The descent down the service staircase was tense, each noise making them stop and listen intently. The assistant led the way, clearing a path while the millionaire kept the girl close, a protective hand on her shoulder. They were almost reaching the back exit when the company's head of security appeared, blocking their path. "What an unpleasant coincidence," said the man, his monotonous voice contrasting with the implied threat in his posture. "The boss is worried about you, so worried that he insists on an immediate conversation." The millionaire instinctively positioned himself in front of the girl. "Tell him we'll talk, but not now. I'm taking the child to a safe place first." The security chief laughed dryly. "I don't think you understand. It wasn't an invitation." He discreetly moved aside his jacket, revealing the butt of a gun. "The girl is coming with us too. She has some very important testimony to retract." The millionaire felt his blood boil. Throughout his life, he had negotiated, compromised, found profitable middle grounds. He had never really fought for something that mattered. Until now. "Over my dead body," he replied, with surprising calm. What happened next occurred in seconds. The security chief advanced, his hand moving towards the gun. The assistant unexpectedly launched himself at him with a shout. There was a brief struggle, the sound of something heavy falling. "Run!" shouted the assistant, holding down the fallen security chief. "I'll slow them down." The millionaire grabbed the girl's hand and ran for the exit, emerging into a side alley where service vehicles were parked. Without hesitating, he approached a delivery van with the engine running. "I need your vehicle," he said to the surprised delivery driver, pulling out a wad of bills. "Family emergency." Minutes later, they were driving through the city, the millionaire's heart pounding furiously. Beside him, the girl remained strangely calm, as if chases and escapes were a normal part of her existence. And maybe they were. "Where are we going now?" she asked, looking in the rearview mirror to check if they were being followed. "To the only place where we'll be safe until the meeting with the DA," replied the millionaire, making a sudden decision. "Home. Your home." The girl seemed genuinely surprised for the first time. "Isn't that the first place they'll look?" A humorless smile appeared on the millionaire's face. "Not my mansion. My daughter's place. The apartment where she lived. Away from the family. The place where she kept her secrets." He paused. "The place where I suspect she planned to take you." The girl was silent for a long moment. "She had pictures on the wall," she said finally. "Lots of children smiling. And plants. Lots of green. Plants?" The millionaire felt tears sting his eyes. "You've been there?" It wasn't a question, but the girl nodded anyway. "Once, when it rained a lot. She said it would be our secret." And as they drove through the city, fleeing from immediate danger towards an uncertain future, the millionaire realized how much of his own daughter's life he had missed. How many secrets, hopes, and dreams she had that he had never known. But he wouldn't make the same mistake with this child. If they survived this night, If they managed to expose the truth and obtain justice, he would dedicate the rest of his life to knowing every dream, every fear, every hope of this little survivor that fate had placed in his path. "We'll get through this," he promised, more to himself than to her. The girl just squeezed her small hand in his, in a silent gesture that said more than any words could express. The millionaire's daughter's apartment was exactly as the girl had described. Walls covered with photographs of smiling children, lush green plants in every corner, a welcoming simplicity that contrasted sharply with the ostentation of the mansion where he had grown up. As the girl walked through the space with the familiarity of someone recognizing a sanctuary, the millionaire felt like an intruder. He had never visited his daughter here. He had always expected her to come to the family mansion for the rare dinners he managed to fit into his overloaded schedule. "She kept extra food in this cabinet," informed the girl, opening a kitchen door, "for the kids who came to visit." The millionaire watched in silence as she moved through the apartment with the confidence of someone who knew the space well, pointing out small details. The place where children's books were kept, the colorful throws on the sofa for cold nights, the calendar still marking the date when his daughter had departed this world. "She showed me a secret box," said the girl suddenly, kneeling near a bookshelf. "Said I should only show it to you if something happened to her." With deft fingers, she removed a loose baseboard, revealing a small cavity in the wall. From inside, she retrieved a locked metal box. "You need a key," she explained, handing it to the millionaire. He looked at the object, puzzled. "I don't have a key." Yes, you do," insisted the girl. "She said you always carry it, even without knowing." Sudden comprehension lit up the millionaire's face. He took out the silver keychain that the girl had returned to him, the gift from his daughter that he always carried as a talisman. The small key-shaped pendant that adorned the keychain, always considered decorative, fit perfectly into the lock of the box. Inside, they found more evidence: detailed financial records, recorded conversations, photographs of secret meetings, and most importantly, a legal will, duly signed and notarized. "She left everything to the project," murmured the millionaire, reading the documents with trembling hands. "All her inheritance to build shelters for children displaced by real estate projects." And at the end of the document, a special clause that made his heart stop. "In the event of my death, I request my father to assume legal guardianship of the child, known on the streets as the little one of the shadows, whom I affectionately call Little Light. She will know how to find him when the time is right." And the millionaire looked at the girl, who watched his reaction with attentive eyes. "She planned everything," he said, marveling at his daughter's foresight. "She knew we'd be here together someday." The apartment's phone rang, startling them. With hesitation, the millionaire answered. It was the DA. "Change of plans. Your assistant contacted me, explained the situation. The police are on their way to the company now with search warrants. Your partner is being monitored. You two need to stay where you are until I send someone I trust." "How did you know where?" "We were. Your assistant. The man is surprisingly efficient. He's okay, by the way, just a few bruises, and very determined to help." A pause. "He said something about a promise to your daughter." When he hung up, the millionaire sat down on the sofa, suddenly exhausted. 3 days of revelations, dangers, and transformations had depleted his physical and emotional reserves. The girl sat down next to him, maintaining a respectful distance. "What happens now?" she asked, for the first time sounding truly like a 6-year-old. The millionaire looked at the photographs on the wall, his daughter surrounded by children, all smiling, all important. Work he had never valued, too busy building buildings to really see that she was building lives. "Now," he replied slowly, "we fulfill the promise, all of them." In the following hours, while they waited in silence, the millionaire began to sketch plans in a notebook found on his daughter's desk. shelter designs, educational programs, support structures for displaced families. The girl watched attentively, occasionally offering surprisingly practical suggestions born from her experience on the streets. "Kids need places to keep their treasures," she commented, pointing to her own rusty can. "Important stuff." The millionaire nodded, adding the observation to the project. Each idea, each concept he wrote down felt like a conversation with his lost daughter, a continuation of dialogues they never had in life. Dawn found them still working, surrounded by papers, plans, and possibilities. When the doorbell finally rang, the millionaire was prepared. 2 police officers and the DA entered, expressions serious but respectful. "Your partner and the head of security are in custody," informed the DA. "The evidence was overwhelming, especially after we found the original documents in the company's vaults. What now? Now the legal processes begin. It will be long, possibly unpleasant. Your presence will be required on several occasions." The DA paused, looking at the girl who remained partially hidden behind the millionaire. "And what about her?" The millionaire placed a protective hand on the child's shoulder. "She's staying with me. It's what my daughter wanted. It's what I want." He turned to face her. "If you want to, too." The girl looked at him for a long moment, then at the photographs on the wall, as if seeking silent approval from the woman who had brought them together. "Yes," she said finally, her voice small but resolute. "I want a family." In the days that followed, the scandal exploded in the media. The millionaire's real estate empire trembled on its foundations. Stocks plummeted. Business partners distanced themselves. He faced depositions, questioning, accusing stares. But each night, he returned to his daughter's apartment, now his temporary home, where the girl was waiting for him, usually drawing or reading the children's books she had found on the shelves. And in those moments, the weight of the day dissipated, replaced by the growing certainty that, for the first time in decades, he was on the right path. A month after the rescue on the rural road, the millionaire presented himself to the family, court judge, with a formal adoption request. The girl, finally with official documents and a name chosen by herself, Aurora, "because it's when the darkness finally goes away," she explained, held his hand throughout the hearing. "Why should we grant guardianship of this child to a man involved in a scandal of this magnitude?" questioned the judge from behind stern glasses. The millionaire took a deep breath, looking at the girl before answering. "Because she taught me what really matters. Because she saved me, not only from physical death, but from the death of the soul. And because I promised my daughter and to her that I would create a world where children no longer need to hide in the shadows." 6 months had passed since the day a millionaire tied to a tree was saved by a street girl. 6 months of profound transformations, both personal and public. The trial of the former partner and his accomplices continued, but the evidence was so overwhelming that few doubted the final result. The real estate empire, once a symbol of luxury and power, was now undergoing a complete restructuring under new leadership. The former personal assistant, promoted by the millionaire himself before officially stepping away from command. "Are you sure about this, sir?" the assistant had asked, stunned by the offer. "The company is still worth billions despite the scandal." "I have other priorities now," the millionaire had replied, looking out the window where Aurora was playing. In the garden of their new home, smaller than the old mansion, but infinitely more welcoming. "Besides, you always saw what I ignored. You're the right person to rebuild everything on a more ethical foundation." On that special morning, the millionaire adjusted his tie in front of the mirror, observing how the last few months had transformed not only his life, but also his appearance. Deep lines of worry had been replaced by others, born from more frequent smiles. His eyes, once calculating and cold, now carried a new depth. "Nervous?" asked Aurora, appearing in the doorway, wearing a simple but elegant blue dress, her own choice for the occasion. "A little," he admitted, something he never would have done in his previous life. "It's a big day for us." The girl approached, with comical seriousness adjusting the tie he had just straightened. "She'd be proud," she said simply. The millionaire felt his chest tighten. It was astonishing how Aurora could, with so few words, touch exactly the most sensitive point of his heart. In the months they had spent together, she had slowly blossomed, gaining weight, smiling more, gradually losing the constant distrust that life on the streets had imposed. But she still maintained that ancient wisdom in her eyes, that sharp perception that went beyond her age. The community center was packed for the inauguration. Former employees of the company, local authorities, representatives from NGOs, and most importantly, dozens of children who were already benefiting from the project. All gathered to witness the official birth of the New Roots project. The modern and welcoming building occupied the land where the abandoned building in which his daughter had found Aurora once stood. The place that should have become yet another luxury development now housed clean dormitories, classrooms, medical and psychological offices, and a large courtyard with trees and playground equipment. "It's time," announced the assistant now, CEO of both the company and the newly created foundation. The millionaire felt Aurora's small hand slip into his, transmitting a silent strength that he never would have imagined finding in someone so small. Together, they walked to the podium. The camera flashes went off immediately. The scandal, the ongoing trial, the dramatic transformation of one of the most powerful men in the city into an advocate for vulnerable children. All of this guaranteed intense media coverage, but for the first time in his life, the millionaire didn't care about what they would say about him, only about what he would do from now on. 6 months ago, he began, his voice clear in the microphone, I was literally tied to a tree, left to die. A man who had everything and, at the same time, had nothing that really mattered. The sincerity of his words captivated the audience. It wasn't the polished speech of a businessman, but the raw testimony of a transformed man. I was saved by this child, he continued, looking at Aurora beside him. A girl that the world considered invisible, who slept in cardboard boxes while I rested in silk sheets, who starved while I wasted food at business dinners. His voice choked up for a moment. She saved me twice. First by cutting the ropes that bound me to that tree, then by cutting the invisible ropes that bound me to a life empty of real meaning. The silence in the room was absolute, each word reverberating on the newly painted walls. My daughter saw what I couldn't see, the injustice that my own name helped to perpetuate, the lives destroyed to build fortunes, the children made invisible by our so-called progress. He paused, looking directly at the portrait of his daughter that occupied a place of honor on the main wall. She started this work, paying with her own life for challenging a corrupt system that I helped create. Today, we are not just inaugurating a building, we are inaugurating a commitment. The millionaire then bent down, getting to Aurora's height, and continued speaking into the microphone that he now held between them. A commitment that no child will be invisible again, that wealth will not determine who deserves dignity, that we can build a city where no one needs to hide in the shadows. Aurora, usually so reserved in public, surprised everyone by gently taking the microphone from the millionaire's hands. She told me once that every person has light inside, she said, her small but firm voice echoing in the silent room. Some forget it because they stay too long in the dark, but you can always remember. She looked at the millionaire with a small smile before continuing. He remembered, and now he's helping other people remember too. There wasn't a dry eye in the room when the millionaire cut the inaugural ribbon. The New Roots project was officially open, a beacon of hope born from tragedy, regret, and an improbable encounter on an abandoned road. Later, while the children excitedly explored the new facilities, a reporter approached the millionaire, who was watching Aurora timidly interacting with other children her age. "Some of your former colleagues in the real estate industry are calling this image laundering," commented the reporter. "They say it's just a strategy to minimize the damage to your reputation after the scandal. What do you say to that?" The millionaire watched Aurora for another moment before turning to the journalist. "A year ago, that question would have infuriated me. I would have instructed my lawyers to sue you and your newspaper." He smiled slightly. "Today, I say only, observe our actions in the coming years. Judge us by the results, not by speculation about intentions." The reporter, clearly surprised by the answer, wrote quickly, "And what about the adoption process? There are rumors that certain traditional families are trying to block your permanent guardianship of the girl, claiming incompatible moral values." The millionaire's smile disappeared, replaced by a steely determination that vaguely resembled the ruthless businessman he had once been. "I will fight for her with every resource I have, not out of guilt or obligation, but because—" He hesitated, searching for the right words. "Because I love her. Because she's my family now." At that moment, Aurora ran up to him, pulling his hand excitedly. "Come see, the kids are planting trees in the backyard. Can I plant one too?" Faced with the genuine enthusiasm on her face, something still rare and precious, the millionaire felt his heart expand in a way he never thought possible. "Of course," he replied, letting her lead him without caring about the reporter or the cameras. "We'll plant the strongest tree of all." As they walked to the garden, Aurora looked up, her face more relaxed and childlike than it had ever been. "Do you think she's seeing this?" she asked quietly, referring to the millionaire's daughter. "I'm sure she is," he replied, gently squeezing the small hand in his palm, "and I think she's smiling." And for the first time in a long time, maybe for the first time in his life, the millionaire felt truly wealthy. The snow fell softly outside the window, covering the city with a pristine white blanket. Inside the cozy apartment, the millionaire watched Aurora sleeping peacefully, her small arms hugging the teddy bear she had won on the day the judge had finally made the adoption official, 3 months after the inauguration of the New Roots project. It had been an intense legal battle. Opponents had emerged from all sides. Resentful ex-business partners, conservatives alarmed by the girl's history, even distant relatives who questioned his ability as an adoptive father after decades of prioritizing money over relationships. The packed courtroom, the public scrutiny, the constant questioning of his motives, it had all tested his resolve like never before. But when Aurora had been called to testify, her simple and honest testimony had silenced even the most hardened critics. "Why do you want to live with him?" the judge had asked gently. "Because he sees me," she had replied simply. "Even when I'm in the shadows, he sees me." Now, almost a year after the encounter on the rural road, the millionaire sat on the edge of his adopted daughter's bed, marveling at the transformation in both of their lives. Aurora attended school regularly, cautiously made friends, and although she still had occasional nightmares about her years on the streets, each day brought more security and confidence. As for himself, the man who had once measured the value of everything in money now valued his wealth in shy smiles, in small daily achievements, in moments of shared vulnerability. The real estate empire continued to thrive under new leadership, but now with strictly ethical policies. A significant percentage of the profits fueled the New Roots project, which had already expanded to 3 units in different underserved areas of the city. The trial of the former partner and his accomplices had ended with severe convictions, bringing some measure of justice to his daughter and so many other victims. "It's snowing," murmured Aurora, waking up slowly and noticing his presence. "It is," he confirmed with a smile. "First snowfall of the winter." The girl sat up in bed, rubbing her eyes. "Do you know what day it is?" he asked. Aurora nodded solemnly. "Day to visit her." Together, they prepared in contemplative silence. The anniversary of the millionaire's daughter's death was a date they both observed with respect and gratitude. She was the link that had united them, the light that continued to guide their actions. At the quiet cemetery, covered in fresh snow, they walked hand in hand to the simple gravesite. At the millionaire's insistence, the headstone did not display symbols of status or grandiose epitaphs, only her name, the dates, and the phrase, "She saw the light in the shadows." Aurora let go of his hand to carefully place a bouquet of colorful flowers on the cold marble. Then she took out a carefully folded drawing from her pocket. A house with people holding hands, the same one she had started drawing at the hotel, now finished with vibrant details and the addition of an angelic figure smiling over everyone. "I brought this to show her," the girl explained, "so she knows I kept my promise to finish the drawing when we were safe." The millionaire felt emotion tighten his throat. He knelt beside Aurora in the snow, not caring about the cold or the expensive coat that would now get wet. "Do you think she'd be proud of what we've done?" he asked, in a rare moment of vulnerability. Aurora thought for a moment, her small face serious and contemplative. "She was always proud of you," she replied finally. "Even when you didn't know how to be the father she needed, she told me that." The words struck the millionaire deeply, releasing tears he was no longer ashamed to shed. "What about you?" he asked. "Are you happy with your new life, with me as your dad?" It was a question he had never asked directly, fearing the answer. Aurora took a moment to answer, as she always did with important matters. "On the streets, I had to be invisible to survive," she began, her voice soft against the silence of the snowy cemetery. "I learned not to be seen, not to make noise, not to leave traces. It was like being a ghost." She paused, looking at the drawing on the grave. "Now I'm learning to be seen, to make noise when I need to leave marks on the world." Her eyes met his. "It's scary sometimes, but it's good. It's like finally existing for real." The millionaire nodded, understanding perfectly. He too was learning to truly exist, beyond the possessions and power that had once defined his identity. "She said you had light inside you," continued Aurora, "that you just needed someone to help you find it again." "And you found it," he replied, his voice choked. "You brought the light back." They remained there for a few more moments in contemplative silence before getting up to leave. On the way back, Aurora watched the falling snowflakes, trying to catch some with her tongue, a purely childish gesture that made the millionaire's heart expand. At home, while preparing hot chocolate for both of them, a newly acquired domestic skill, the millionaire received a call from the director of the New Roots project. "We just got approval for the job training program," announced the excited voice on the other end of the line. "And 3 more families have been approved for the housing program. We're really making a difference." After hanging up, the millionaire found Aurora in the living room, watching the snow-covered city through the window. He handed her the steaming mug before sitting down on the sofa. "What do you see out there?" he asked, curious about her unique perspective of the world. Aurora considered the question thoughtfully, as she did with everything. "I see places where I used to hide," she replied finally. "But I also see places where other kids won't need to hide anymore." The millionaire nodded, understanding the depth behind the simple words. "You know what I think sometimes?" she continued, turning to face him. I think that maybe we were both lost. You in your glass tower, me in the shadows of the city, both needing to be found. He smiled, as always admiring the innate wisdom of this child that fate had placed in his path. And then we found each other on that road, he finished. It wasn't a coincidence, affirmed Aurora, with the absolute certainty that only a child can have. She's the one who brought us together, who showed us the way. The millionaire extended his arm, and Aurora came to sit beside him, resting her head on his shoulder as they watched the snow falling outside together. A peace that neither of them had ever experienced before enveloped them. The feeling of finally being where they were meant to be. What are we going to do tomorrow? Asked Aurora, sleep starting to soften her voice. Whatever we want, he replied, kissing the top of her head. We have all the time in the world now. And as the snow continued to fall, transforming the city into a blank canvas, ready to receive new stories, new paths, the millionaire finally understood the true nature of wealth. It wasn't in the buildings he had built or the bank accounts he had accumulated, but in the small girl asleep in his arms, in the promise fulfilled, in the lives transformed, in the second chances. On his journey from the skyscrapers to the streets and back, he hadn't lost an empire, he had gained a soul. If this story touched you, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to receive new stories every day.